The council chamber floated high above Centauri Prime, a massive station that gleamed like a jewel against the darkness of space. Inside, representatives from 43 different species gathered in the grand hall. The air hummed with translation devices, turning thousands of alien languages into something each delegate could understand. Ambassador Jiwon Park stood at the speaking platform, her hands gripping the edges of the podium. She was human, which meant most of the aliens in the room barely paid attention to her. Earth had only been part of the Galactic Council for 200 years. That was nothing compared to species who had traveled to stars for thousands of years. Jiwon took a deep breath and began speaking. Honorable delegates, I come before you today with an urgent warning. The route your fleet plans to take through the void sector is extremely dangerous. Earth strongly advises against this mission. A ripple of laughter moved through the chamber. It sounded like wind chimes mixed with grinding metal and strange clicks. The translation devices couldn't quite capture the mockery in those sounds, but Jiwon felt it anyway. Chancellor Victor rose from his seat. He was tall, nearly 3 meters, with blue-gray skin and 4 arms. His species, the Dominion, had ruled over a quarter of the galaxy for 5,000 years. When he spoke, others listened. Ambassador Park, he said, his voice deep and smooth. Earth has been in space for barely 2 centuries. We have mapped and traveled these regions for millennia. What could you possibly know that we do not? Jiwon pulled up a holographic display. It showed the void sector, a region of space marked in red. Strange patterns flickered across the image, quantum signatures that made no sense according to normal physics. 3 years ago, Earth sent a science vessel into this region, Jiwon explained. What we found there. It's not something that follows normal rules. The space itself is wrong. We've declared it a quarantine zone. No Earth ships go there anymore. A delegate from the Sarian Union, a species that looked like floating jellyfish made of crystal, spoke up. Your scientists probably misread their instruments. Space is space, Ambassador. There's nothing mysterious about it. We didn't misread anything, Jiwon said, trying to keep her voice calm. We have data, recordings, testimony from survivors. Something exists in that sector that we don't fully understand. It's dangerous to large groups of ships. Victor waved one of his 4 hands dismissively. You lost 1 ship, and now you want the entire council to change their plans? The void sector is the fastest route to the Kepler cluster. That region contains rare minerals worth trillions of credits. Your Earth corporations probably want to keep it for themselves. This isn't about money, Jiwon said, her voice rising. This is about safety. About lives. I'm begging you to reconsider. Another delegate stood up, this one from the Thalos Collective. Ambassador Park, we appreciate your concern. But Earth is young. You haven't seen what we've seen. The galaxy is vast, but it follows rules. Laws of physics don't change just because you enter a different sector. Jiwon felt frustration building in her chest. She pulled up another display, showing more data. These quantum readings are unlike anything in known science. The spatial distortions alone should tell you, Enough, Victor interrupted. This council has heard your warning. We acknowledge that Earth has concerns. However, the council's decision is final. The Grand Armada will proceed through the void sector in 3 days. This route will cut our travel time by 40%. The Kepler cluster's resources are needed by all member species. Jiwon looked around the chamber. Some delegates looked uncomfortable, but none spoke up to support her. The vote had already been decided before she even entered the room. This hearing was just a formality. Then I ask that you at least limit the number of ships, Jiwon said. Send a small scout group first. Test the route with 5 or 10 ships, not your entire armada. Victor smiled, showing teeth that looked like shards of glass. And appear weak? Show the galaxy that we fear empty space? No, Ambassador. The Grand Armada will travel together. All 847 ships. It will be a demonstration of Council unity and strength. The vote was called? 42 species voted yes. Only Earth voted no. G1 gathered her papers and walked out of the chamber. Her assistant, a young man named Kiwon Lee, fell into step beside her. They didn't listen, Kiwon said quietly. No, Jiwon replied. They didn't? They boarded Earth's diplomatic shuttle and headed back toward the inner solar system. The trip would take 2 days using conventional faster-than-light travel. Jiwon spent most of that time staring out the window, watching stars streak past. When they finally arrived at Earth, Jiwon went straight to Terran Defense Command. The headquarters sat beneath the Rocky Mountains, a fortress of steel and concrete buried deep underground. Director Minho Choi met her in his office. He was a man in his 50s with gray hair and tired eyes. He'd been running Earth's defense operations for 10 years. They rejected the warning, Jiwon said as she sat down. Minho nodded slowly. I expected as much. Did you show them the data? Everything we could without revealing classified details. They think we're either incompetent or lying to protect economic interests. Minho poured 2 glasses of water and handed one to Jiwon. Victor has been looking for a reason to diminish Earth's influence. He sees us as upstarts who got lucky with our technology. He won't admit that we might know something he doesn't. 847 ships, Jiwon said softly. Millions of crew members. And they're going to sail right into it. Can we stop them? Minho asked. Jiwon shook her head. Not without revealing what we know about the architect. And if we do that, every species in the galaxy will want access to the void sector. We'll start a crisis that makes this look small. Minho stood and walked to the window. It wasn't a real window, just a screen showing the surface above. Snow was falling in the mountains. How long until the Armada enters the void sector? He asked. 57 hours, Jiwon replied. Then we wait, Minho said. And we pray that somehow they'll be lucky. But both of them knew the truth. Luck had nothing to do with what waited in the void sector. The architect didn't care about luck or prayers or the hopes of any species. It existed beyond such concerns, beyond the understanding of beings who traveled between stars, but still thought the universe followed rules they could understand. G1 left the office and walked through the halls of Terran Defense Command. Soldiers and scientists moved around her, busy with their duties. None of them knew what was coming. None of them knew that in less than 3 days, the Galactic Council would learn a lesson that humanity had already paid for in blood. She thought about the 78 crew members who died when Earth's ship first entered the void sector. She remembered reading their names, learning about their families, attending the memorial services that could never reveal how they really died. Now millions more would join them. And there was nothing she could do to stop it. The Galactic Council Command Center orbited the moon of Centauri Prime. It was the largest military facility in known space, capable of tracking 10,000 ships simultaneously. Right now, every screen, every sensor, every analyst was focused on one thing, the Grand Armada. 847 warships moved in perfect formation toward the void sector. They represented 12 different species, each one bringing their most advanced vessels. There were battleships the size of cities, carriers holding thousands, a fighter craft, and cruisers armed with weapons that could shatter planets. Chancellor Victor stood on the command deck, all 4 of his arms crossed in satisfaction. Cameras from 100 different worlds broadcast the scene across the galaxy. This wasn't just a military operation, it was a show of power. Armada approaching. The void sector boundary, announced a Sarian officer, its crystalline body pulsing with different colors. All ships reporting normal status, Victor smiled. He turned to look at one of the screens showing Ambassador Jiwon Park. She watched from Earth's monitoring station, her face tight with worry. The Chancellor enjoyed seeing the humans' concern. Let them see that the Council didn't need their warnings. Fleet Admiral Johan commands the Armada, Victor said to the cameras. A veteran of 40 campaigns across 3 centuries. The finest military mind in Council space. Yet Earth wanted U.S. to believe this decorated warrior should fear empty space. Back on Earth, deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, Director Minho Choi stood in a different kind of command center. This one was smaller, darker, filled with equipment that the rest of the galaxy didn't know existed. Beside him stood Captain Hyan Kong, head of Terran Strategic Operations. T-minus 2 minutes to boundary crossing, Hyan said quietly. Minho said nothing. He just watched the screens showing the Armada's approach. They had sensors pointed at the void sector too, but there's detected things Council equipment couldn't see. Things in dimensions that most species didn't know existed. Quantum flux increasing, reported a technician. Higher dimensional signatures are rising. It knows they're coming, Minho said. Hyan nodded. Should we try one more time? Send another warning? They wouldn't listen, Minho replied. And if we tell them exactly why they should stop, we'd have to reveal everything. That would be worse. In the Council Command Center, excitement grew as the Armada reached the boundary. The void sector stretched before them, a region of space that looked completely normal on their sensors. Just stars and darkness like any other part of the galaxy. All ships, this is Fleet Admiral Johan, a voice crackled across the communications. We are crossing the boundary on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark. 847 ships crossed into the void sector together. Their engines glowed bright as they accelerated, moving in perfect formation. Every captain, every crew member felt proud. They were making history. Chancellor Victor began to speak to the cameras again. As you can see, the crossing is completely. The screens went dark. Not just one screen, all of them. Every sensor, every communication channel, every tracking system. 847 signals vanished at exactly the same instant. The command center erupted in chaos. Officers shouted at their stations, trying to restore contact. Technicians ran diagnostics, thinking their equipment had failed. Get those sensors back online, Victor roared. Sir, the sensors are online, the Sarian officer replied, its colors flashing in panic. They're working perfectly. The ships are just gone. That's impossible, Victor said. Check again. They checked and checked again. The result was always the same. 847 warships had simply ceased to exist. No explosions, no debris, no distress signals. Not even a flicker of energy where they should have been. 17 seconds. That's how long the Armada had existed inside the void sector. On Earth, in the underwater facility, Minho closed his eyes. Around him, his staff sat in silence. They had watched it happen on their special sensors. The quantum signatures, the higher dimensional shifts, the moment when all that mattered was simply edited out. God help them, whispered one of the technicians. God had nothing to do with it, Hyan said flatly. Back at the Council Command Center, Victor grabbed a communications officer. Send search and rescue teams. Now. Sir, send them where? We don't know where the ships went. They're not registering on any sensor band. Then expand the search? Use every ship we have? They must have left some kind of trail. For the next 6 hours, Council ships flooded into the outer edges of the void sector. They sent drones, long-range sensors, quantum scanners, everything they had. The search turned up nothing, not a single molecule of debris, not one emergency beacon, not even a distortion in space where 847 massive ships should have left some kind of mark. It was as if the Armada had never existed at all. News spread across the galaxy like wildfire. 43 species had sent ships in that Armada. 43 species now had families demanding answers. 4 million crew members. 4 million people who left for a routine crossing and never arrived. Riots broke out on some worlds. Others held massive memorial services, though there were no bodies to bury. The Galactic Council tried to maintain order, but Chancellor Victor's authority was crumbling. 3 days after the disappearance, Victor called an emergency session. He demanded that Earth appear before the Council immediately. Joan made the journey again, but this time Minho and Hyan came with her. When they entered the Council chamber, the atmosphere was completely different from before. Before there had been dismissal and mockery. Now there was fear and anger. Ambassador Park, Victor said, his voice shaking with barely controlled rage. You will explain what happened to our fleet. We warned you, Juan said simply. Your warning was insufficient. A delegate from Thalos shouted. You said it was dangerous, but you didn't say our ships would disappear. We told you the truth, Minho interjected. We said something exists there that doesn't follow normal rules. We said it was dangerous to large groups of ships. You chose not to believe us. Victor slammed one of his fists on his desk. Don't play word games with me, human. You knew something specific. You must have. Earth has been studying that region for 3 years. What did you find there? The chamber fell silent. Every eye, every sensor, every alien feature turned toward the 3 humans. Hyan stepped forward. We found something we don't fully understand. Something we've been trying to study safely. We warned you because we knew what could happen. And then you have a weapon, a Sarian delegate said. You've developed something that can destroy entire fleets without leaving traces. You've murdered 4 million beings. No, Jawan said firmly. We didn't create anything. We certainly didn't destroy your fleet. We warned you to stay away from something dangerous. You didn't listen. Victor stood up to his full height, trying to intimidate them. I am declaring an official investigation. Earth will be sanctioned until you reveal all information about the Void Sector. Trade agreements are suspended. Your embassy privileges are revoked, and if we determine you are responsible for this attack, the Council will respond with military force. Minho looked up at the tall Chancellor. His voice was calm, but there was steel underneath. If you want to know the truth, we'll show you. But I warn you now, once you see what's really in the Void Sector, you can't unsee it. Some knowledge is a burden you'll carry forever. I'll take that risk, Victor growled. Very well, Minho said. Come to Earth, bring your best scientists and military leaders. We'll show you everything. But understand this. When you learn what happened to your armada, you'll wish you had listened to our warning. The meeting ended there. Arrangements were made for a council delegation to travel to Earth. As the 3 humans left the chamber, Kiwan joined them in the shuttle. Are we really going to show them? He asked. We don't have a choice now, Minho replied. They think we're responsible. The only way to prove our innocence is to reveal what we've been hiding. Jiwan looked out at the stars. Once they know about the architect, everything changes. Everything already changed, Hyan said quietly. The moment that armada disappeared, the galaxy became a different place. They just don't understand it yet. The council delegation arrived at Earth 3 days later. Chancellor Victor led the group, along with 15 other representatives and their teams of scientists and military experts. They expected to be taken to some military base on the surface. Perhaps shown a secret weapons facility. Instead. They boarded a submarine. The vessel descended through the Pacific Ocean, going deeper and deeper until no natural light remained. At 30,000 feet below the surface, they reached a structure that shouldn't exist. A massive facility built into an undersea trench, protected by pressure shields and energy barriers. Welcome to Deep Site 7, Minho said as they entered through an airlock. This facility doesn't officially exist. Only 12 people on Earth knew about it until yesterday. The delegates looked around nervously. They were deep underwater on an alien world, surrounded by humans who might be responsible for destroying their fleet. Some touched their personal shields, making sure they were active. Hyan led them through corridors of steel and concrete. Before we show you what we found, you need to understand the context. 3 years ago, Earth sent a science vessel into the Void Sector. The ship was called the New Horizon. It had a crew of 215 people. They entered a large briefing room. A holographic display activated in the center showing the New Horizon. It was a beautiful ship designed for long-range exploration. The mission was routine, Hyan continued. Map the sector, analyze any unusual phenomena, return with data. The ship entered the Void Sector and maintained regular contact for the first hour. Then the communications became ... strange. He played an audio recording. At first, it was normal radio chatter between the ship and Earth Command. Then the voices started changing. Words became confused. Sentences stopped making sense. And underneath it all, there was a sound that made every delegate in the room feel uncomfortable. It wasn't loud, but it seemed to vibrate in their bones. What is that noise? Asked Othello's representative. We don't know, Minho said. It doesn't register on normal audio equipment. You're not hearing it with your ears. You're experiencing it directly in your consciousness. The recording ended abruptly. Hyam brought up more data. At this point, we lost contact with the New Horizon completely. Rescue ships were sent, but they were too afraid to enter deep into the sector after what happened next. He showed another video. This one was grainy, taken from the New Horizon's emergency cameras. It showed the ship's bridge. Crew members moved normally, checking their stations. Then suddenly, some of them simply weren't there anymore. Not exploded, not vaporized. Just gone as if they had never existed. One moment, a person stood at a console. The next moment, only empty space remained. The delegates watched in horror as this happened again and again. 20 crew members vanished in 30 seconds. The remaining crew panicked, running, screaming. Some tried to use escape pods. The pods launched, but the moment they separated from the ship, they vanished too. 78 people disappeared in the first 5 minutes, Minho said quietly. The ship was dying. And then one person did something incredible. A woman appeared on the screen. She was young, maybe 30, with short black hair and determined eyes. She sat at the communications station, her hands moving frantically over the controls. This is Dr. Sujin Lee, Minho said. At the time, she was a junior xenobiology researcher. She wasn't even supposed to be on the bridge. But when the senior officers vanished, she took over. They watched as Sujin did something strange. Instead of trying to call for help or navigate the ship away, she changed the communication frequencies. She went through patterns that made no sense, shifting between bands of energy that shouldn't carry signals at all. What is she doing? Victor asked. Attempting first contact, said a voice from the doorway. Everyone turned. A woman walked into the room. It was Sujin herself, now 3 years older. She looked tired, but there was a strange light in her eyes. Behind her came a man in a military uniform, Commander Dayanam. I figured out that the disappearances followed a pattern, Sujin explained. It wasn't random. Something was causing it, something with intention. So I tried to communicate with it. She pulled up new data on the display. I used quantum entangled particles, broadcasting across 17 different dimensional frequencies. And after 47 attempts, something answered. The room fell completely silent. I made contact with what we now call the architect, Sujin continued. It's not a species. It's not a creature in any sense we understand. It's a singular consciousness that exists in higher dimensions. The three-dimensional space we live in is like a shadow on a wall to it. It barely perceives us as real. Dayan stepped forward. I was the captain of the New Horizon. I watched my crew disappear one by one. What Dr. Lee discovered is that the architect wasn't attacking us. It didn't even know we were alive. To it, our ships, our bodies, everything we think of as solid matter is just noise in its domain. That's impossible, a delegate said. Matter is matter. It exists. To us, yes, Sujin said. But the architect exists in 11 dimensions. It sees reality in ways we can't comprehend. When we enter its space with large concentrations of matter, especially artificial structures like ships, it perceives this as an error, like dust on a lens, so it corrects the error. It erases us, Minho said. Victor stood up, his forearms shaking. You're saying our armada was destroyed by some higher dimensional being? And you knew about this? We knew, Jawan said. But we couldn't tell you. Because if we had revealed the architect's existence, every species in the galaxy would have tried to study it, enter its space, attempt contact. That would have resulted in millions more deaths. You had no right to keep this secret. Victor roared. We had every right, Hyun shot back. Earth made contact first. Earth paid the price with 78 lives? And we learned how to survive? Sujin activated another display. After I established communication, the architect agreed to tolerate small numbers of ships in its space. It doesn't understand us, but it recognized that we're not just random matter. We're organized somehow, capable of patterns, so it agreed to leave us alone if we stayed small and respectful. Earth has been sending single research vessels into the outer edges of the void sector ever since, Minho explained. One ship at a time, with crews who know the risks. We've been trying to understand the architect better, but we knew that large fleets would be seen as a major incursion. Too much matter, too much noise in its domain. That's why we warned you, Jiwan said. Your armada was 847 ships. That's massive. The architect perceived it as a huge error and corrected it instantly. Assyrian delegates' colors flickered wildly. Then we can negotiate. If this architect is intelligent, we can communicate with it. Make it return our ships. Sujin's face filled with sadness. No, you can't. I've spent 3 years learning its language, its thought patterns. The architect has no concept of time the way we do. What it erases doesn't exist in any timeline. There's no past state to return to. Your ships and crews aren't destroyed or lost. From the architect's perspective, they never were. The room erupted in shouts and arguments. Some delegates cursed Earth for keeping secrets. Others demanded access to the research. A few simply broke down, understanding that their people were truly gone forever. Victor looked at Minho with pure hatred. You could have forced the issue. You could have made us listen. How? Minho asked. By revealing the architect without proof? You would have accused us of lying to protect territory. By destroying your ships ourselves to prove the danger? That would be murder. By sending you classified footage? You would have said it was faked. There was no scenario where you would have believed us without sending your fleet first. Dayan spoke up, his voice heavy with experience. I watched 78 of my crew members cease to exist. I gave the order that killed them because I didn't understand what we were facing until too late. That guilt stays with me every day. But I'll tell you something else. When Dr. Lee made contact with the architect, it showed us something. It showed us that the universe is bigger and stranger than any of us imagined. There are things out here that don't care about our politics, our pride, or our military strength. The only way to survive is through humility and caution. Victor sat down slowly. His anger was fading, replaced by crushing realization. 4 million people. Because we were too proud to listen to a younger species. Yes, Jawan said softly. And we're sorry. We tried to warn you. But we understand your anger. If our positions were reversed, we might feel the same way. Sujin pulled up one final image. It showed the void sector, but overlaid with readings from higher dimensions. Strange patterns swirled through space, beautiful and terrible. At the center was something that hurt to look at, a presence that seemed to exist in too many places at once. This is the architect, she said. Or at least, this is the shadow it casts into our dimensions. We're like ants trying to understand a human. We're not equipped to fully comprehend what it is. But we can learn to respect its space and survive in the parts of the galaxy it considers real. The delegates stared at the image. Some looked terrified. Others looked fascinated. All of them understood that the galaxy would never be the same. The galaxy fractured in the weeks following the revelation. The Galactic Council tried to maintain order, but trust had been shattered. Not just in Earth, but in the entire system of government that had ruled. Known space for thousands of years, Chancellor Victor, was removed from power 3 days after returning from Deep Site 7. His own people demanded it. The Dominion species had lost 200 ships in the Armada, more than any other race. Families wanted someone to blame, and Victor had been the one who ignored Earth's warning, Lieutenant Young-Soo. Han worked around the clock at Earth's embassy on Centauri Prime. He was a tactical analyst, trained to handle military data, but now he spent his days managing diplomatic fires. Every hour brought new demands, new accusations, new threats. Ambassador, the Sarian Union wants access to all of Earth's architect research, Young-Soo reported to Jiwan. They're threatening to break trade agreements if we refuse. Jiwan rubbed her temples. She'd barely slept in 2 weeks. Tell them the same thing we've told everyone else. The research is classified for safety reasons. Sharing it would put more lives at risk. They're saying we're hoarding dangerous knowledge for our own benefit. And they're not listening, Jawan said tiredly. The knowledge itself is dangerous. The more you understand about the architect, the more likely you are to think you can predict it, control it. That's what gets people killed. Another message came through. This one from the Phalos Collective. Young-Soo read it and winced. They want permission to send their own research vessels into the void sector. They believe their technology is advanced enough to avoid the architect's attention. Denied, Jawan said immediately. Absolutely not. We're not risking more lives. They might send ships anyway, Young-Soo warned. Then we'll have to stop them. Ji-won stood up and walked to the window. Outside, protests filled the streets. Aliens from dozens of species carried signs demanding justice, answers, revenge. How did we become the bad guys in this? We tried to save them. Because people need someone to blame, Young-Soo said. And it's easier to blame Earth than to accept that their leaders made a fatal mistake. Back on Earth, Dr. Sujin Lee worked in her laboratory with Dr. Min Jae-on, her research partner. They were developing something new, quantum beacons that could warn other species away from architect space without revealing classified information. The trick is making it instinctive, Min Jae explained as he adjusted a device. Most sentient species have built-in fear responses to certain stimuli. We're creating a beacon that triggers those responses at a subconscious level. Sujin tested the beacon on herself. Immediately, she felt a deep sense of dread, a primal urge to move away from the device. That works. Maybe too well. I feel like I'm about to have a panic attack. We can tune it down, Min Jae said. Make it more subtle. Just enough to make people uncomfortable, give them second thoughts about proceeding. Will the council accept this? Sujin asked. Min Jae shrugged. Some will. Others will see it as Earth trying to maintain control. But at least we're offering something. A way to protect people without requiring them to understand the architect. At Terran Defense Command, Fleet Admiral Sora Kim faced a different kind of crisis. Earth's own military was divided on how to handle the situation. General Taejin Beek stood in Sora's office, his voice loud with frustration. We should be leveraging this. Earth has knowledge that makes us the most powerful species in the galaxy. We know how to survive the architect. That gives us incredible strategic advantage. Strategic advantage? Sora said coldly. Against who? The architect doesn't care about politics or warfare. It's not a weapon we can use. But other species don't know that, Taejun argued. They're afraid. They think we might have some way to control it. We could use that fear to what? Sora interrupted. Bully other species? Threaten them? Build an empire on lies and fear? That's not who we are. Then who are we? Taejin demanded. We've been part of the galactic community for 2 centuries, and they still treat us like children. Now we finally have something they don't, and you want to just give it away. I want to keep people alive, Sora said firmly, including our own people. If we try to use the architect as a threat or a tool, we'll attract exactly the wrong kind of attention. Other species will band together against us. Or worse, they'll try to study the architect themselves and cause another disaster. The argument continued for another hour. Finally, Sora had to pull rank and order Taejin to stand down. But she knew the general wasn't the only one who felt that way. Many humans saw this as Earth's moment to rise above the older species. Minho met with Sora later that day. Taejin isn't wrong about the power dynamics, he admitted. Whether we like it or not, knowledge of the architect changes Earth's position in galactic politics. I know, Sora said, but power built on fear and secrets doesn't last. Eventually someone calls your bluff or finds out the truth. Then you have enemies and no real strength to back it up. So what do? We share what we can, protect what we must, and try to guide the galaxy toward respecting boundaries that protect everyone. 6 months after the Armada disappeared, the Galactic Council held a memorial service. It took place on Centauri Prime in a massive park that had been converted into a remembrance site. 4 million names were inscribed on walls of Blackstone. G1 attended, even though many blamed Earth for the disaster. She walked among the walls, reading names in hundreds of different languages and symbols. She found the section for the Dominion species and stopped at a particular name, Fleet Admiral Johann, the commander who had led the armada to its doom. "You didn't deserve this," Juwan said quietly to the inscription. "You were a warrior following orders. It should never have happened." A Dominion civilian approached her. It was female, Juwan thought, though alien genders were hard to determine. "You're the human ambassador." "Yes," Juwan said. "My partner was on one of those ships," the alien said. Her voice was thick with grief. "A weapons officer. He was excited about the mission. He recorded a message for our child before he left, telling him about the great adventure he was going on." Juwan didn't know what to say. "I'm sorry. We tried to warn—" "I know," the alien interrupted. "I watched the recordings of the council session. You did warn them." Chancellor Victor was too proud to listen. "My partner died because of pride." "It shouldn't matter whose fault it was," Juwan said. "He should still be alive." "They all should." The alien looked at Johann's name on the wall. "Your species lost people too, didn't you? When you first encountered this architect thing—" 78 crew members, Juwan confirmed. "Do you have a memorial for them?" "Yes, in Colorado, near where our defense headquarters is located. Are their deaths classified too? Does anyone outside Earth know their names?" Juwan hesitated. "No, the mission was classified. Only their families know how they really died." The alien nodded slowly. "That's a heavy burden. Mourning in secret because the truth is too dangerous to share." "Yes," Juwan said. "It is." They stood together in silence for a while, two beings from different worlds united by loss. Eventually, the alien spoke again. "The new chancellor is more reasonable. She wants to work with Earth, establish protocols for dealing with unknown dangers." "I heard," Juwan said. "I think that's wise. Will you help? I know some of my people still blame yours, but I think we need Earth's guidance. You faced this horror and survived. That experience has value." Juwan looked around at the walls of names, thinking about all the lives that had been lost because wisdom had been ignored. "Yes," she said. "We'll help. We'll share what we can and teach others to be cautious. Maybe then these deaths will have meant something." The memorial service began. Speakers from each species talked about their lost loved ones. Music played, strange and beautiful, mixing the traditions of 12 different cultures. Yuan listened to it all, thinking about the new horizon and the 78 names that would remain secret forever. When it was Earth's turn to speak, Yuan walked to the podium. She looked out at the crowd of thousands, alien faces filled with grief and anger and confusion. "I stand before you not to defend Earth's actions, but to honor those who were lost," she began. 4 million people died because of miscommunication, pride, and the vast dangers of a universe we're only beginning to understand. Earth takes responsibility for not finding a way to make our warning clear enough. But we also ask that the Council take responsibility for dismissing that warning without proper investigation. Some in the crowd murmured angrily, but Jawan continued. "Moving forward, we propose something new, the Void Protocols. A shared agreement about how to handle unknown phenomena and dangers. Earth will contribute its research and experience. Other species will contribute their own knowledge and perspectives. Together, we can build a framework that protects all sentient life." She paused, looking at the walls of names. "These 4 million people cannot be returned. But we can honor them by learning from this tragedy. By choosing humility over pride, caution over recklessness, cooperation over isolation. That is how we make their deaths mean something." The speech ended. Some applauded. Others remained silent. But Ji-1 saw hope on some faces, a willingness to move forward instead of dwelling in blame and anger. It wasn't much, but it was a start. 6 months had passed since the memorial service, and the galaxy looked different. The old Galactic Council chamber had been renovated, with new seating arrangements that gave Earth a permanent position among the senior members. It wasn't a reward, everyone understood. It was recognition that humanity had knowledge and experience that couldn't be ignored. G1 sat in Earth's seat for the first time, feeling the weight of what it represented. Around her, the new council gathered. Chancellor Vector was gone, replaced by Chancellor Iris from a smaller species called the Kelm. Iris had been one of the few delegates who voted to investigate Earth's warning more thoroughly. That vote had come too late to save anyone, but it made her the right choice to lead the council forward. "Today we established the Void Protocols," Iris announced. Her voice was soft but firm. The Kelm resembled six-legged cats with translucent skin. They weren't powerful or numerous, but they were wise. These protocols will govern how all council species respond to unknown phenomena and potential dangers. The protocols had taken months to develop. Earth provided the framework based on their experiences with the architect. Other species contributed their own encounters with strange cosmic events. The result was a comprehensive system for categorizing dangers, sharing information, and making decisions about exploration. First principle, Iris read. When any species reports a significant danger, the Council must investigate before dismissing the warning. Pride and assumptions of superiority have no place in matters of survival. A Dominion delegate shifted uncomfortably. That principle was a direct response to how Vector had treated Earth's warning. But no one objected. The lesson had been learned in blood. Second principle, Iris continued. Knowledge of extremely dangerous phenomena must be shared carefully but not withheld completely. Each species has the right to protect itself but also the responsibility to warn others. This was the compromise Earth had agreed to. They would share information about the architect, but not all of it. Enough for others to understand and respect the danger, but not enough to encourage reckless exploration. G1 raised her hand. Earth has prepared educational materials about higher dimensional phenomena. We're making these available to all council members. We're also offering Dr. Sojin Lee as a consultant for any species that needs guidance. The Void Protocols are accepted unanimously, Iris declared. Let this mark a new era of cooperation and humility. After the session, Jiwan met with several delegates privately. Some wanted to thank Earth for its contributions. Others wanted to express lingering resentments. All of them wanted to know more about the architect. Meanwhile, deep in the Pacific Ocean, Sojin was preparing for something unprecedented. She stood in the equipment bay of a small research vessel called the Quiet Storm. Beside her was Dae-yun, now permanently assigned to architect research. Are you sure about this? Dae-yun asked. No, Sujin admitted. But I've been analyzing communication patterns for 3 years. I think I can attempt deeper contact. Maybe even make it understand us better. Or trigger another erasure event. That's why we're going alone, Sujin said. One small ship. If something goes wrong, we're the only ones at risk. They boarded the Quiet Storm and began the journey to the Void Sector. This time, they weren't just entering the outer edges. With Minho's authorization and the Council's reluctant approval, they were going deep into architect space. The journey took 3 days. As they approached the boundary, Sojin felt the familiar sensation of wrongness. Space itself seemed to protest their presence. Instruments showed readings that defied physics. Reality became flexible at the edges of human perception. Crossing the boundary, Dae-yun announced, the ship moved forward. This time, there was no panic, no fear of immediate erasure. They'd learned the patterns. Small ships moving slowly, broadcasting their intention through quantum frequencies, could navigate architect space without triggering a response. Sojin activated her equipment. She'd been building on her initial contact for 3 years, developing a more sophisticated language. It wasn't really language in the human sense. It was more like mathematics combined with emotion. Patterns that existed in dimensions humans couldn't perceive directly. She sent out her message. Recognition, respect, and a request for understanding. For a long time, there was nothing. Then space itself seemed to shift. The architect was paying attention. What followed was impossible to describe in words. Sujin experienced communication that happened outside normal time. She saw reality from the architect's perspective, where three-dimensional space was just one layer of an infinitely complex structure, where solid matter was barely distinguishable from empty space, where beings like humans were patterns so small and fleeting that noticing them individually was like a human trying to perceive individual atoms with the naked eye. The architect didn't speak in words or thoughts. It communicated through direct experience. Sujin felt its confusion about why these tiny patterns insisted on existing in its domain. She felt its attempt to understand. And slowly she felt something like recognition. The architect couldn't truly comprehend humanity, but it could recognize that these patterns were organized, intentional, and wanted to persist. It was like a human finally noticing that the ants in their kitchen were trying to communicate, and choosing to respect their presence even if understanding their concerns was impossible. Then the architect did something unexpected. It showed Sujin a pathway, a narrow corridor through its space where the dimensional barriers were thicker, where three-dimensional matter could exist more easily. It was a gift, though the architect probably didn't think of it that way. It was simply a way to let these persistent patterns move through its domain without constant effort to avoid erasure. When Sujin finally returned to normal consciousness, she was crying. Dae-yun stabilized the ship and checked her vitals. "What happened?" he asked urgently. "It understands now," Sojin said through her tears. "Not completely, but enough. It's offering us a path." She pulled up the navigation data. The architect had imprinted information directly into their ship's computers, showing a route through the void sector. It was narrow and would be slow to traverse, but ships using it would be safe. They returned to Earth and reported their findings. The news spread quickly through the council. A safe route through the void sector existed. It was a shortcut that could cut travel time between two major galactic regions by 40%. But Director Minho and Captain Hen faced a difficult decision. Should they announce the route and allow it to be used? "It's a gift," argued some. "The architect is offering peace." "It's a temptation," argued others. "If we start using that route regularly, we'll forget the danger. We'll become complacent." In the end, the council voted on strict guidelines. The route would be available, but only for emergency use and limited scientific research. No military vessels, no massive trade convoys. Small ships, traveling one at a time with mandatory safety protocols. "We're choosing caution over convenience," Iris explained to the assembled delegates. "This is what the Void protocols demand. We respect the gift, but we don't abuse it." The vote passed with strong support. Earth had taught the galaxy a valuable lesson, and for once, it was being learned 3 years after the Armada's disappearance. Captain Hyun Kong stood in front of a class at Terran Defense Academy. Before him sat 50 cadets from Earth and 20 exchange students from other species. They were the next generation of officers, the ones who would carry forward the lessons of the Void sector. "The Council ignored Earth's warning for a simple reason," Hyun lectured. "They believed that age equals wisdom and power equals understanding. But the universe doesn't care about our pride. It doesn't care if you're a species that's been traveling the stars for 1 century or 10,000. The galaxy contains wonders and horrors that existed long before any of us and will continue long after we're gone." He pulled up an image of the Grand Armada in its final moments. 847 ships. 4 million people. All gone because leadership chose pride over caution. Remember this when you become officers. Remember it when you're faced with warnings from unexpected sources. Remember it when you think you know better than everyone else. A cadet raised her hand. "Sir, if Earth had revealed the architect immediately, couldn't the tragedy have been prevented?" "Maybe," Hyun admitted. "Maybe not. If we'd revealed everything, the Council might have sent even more ships to study it. Or they might have accused us of fabricating evidence. We did what we thought was right at the time. We tried to warn them without causing a bigger crisis. We failed to convince them, but we tried. Another cadet, this one a Syrian exchange student, spoke up. My family lost members in the Armada. I've read all the reports. I don't blame Earth. I blame Chancellor Victor for his arrogance. But I also understand why revealing the architect was difficult. Hyan nodded. The Void Sector incident teaches many lessons. Some are about communication and trust. Others are about humility and caution. But the most important lesson is this: survival in space requires respecting what we don't understand. We're all just temporary patterns in a vast, ancient universe. The moment we forget that is the moment we become vulnerable. The class ended and students filed out. Hyan watched them go, hoping they would remember.